Hello and a very warm welcome to the Late Breaking F1 podcast presented by Harry Eade, Sam Sage and me, Ben Hocking, on this non-race Sunday. But we're getting closer to the races again, Sam.
Oh, day by day, step by step, we're getting there. But it's quite nice to have a little cosy Sunday, just have like a chit chat about F1 because the news has been bloody pouring out, hasn't it?
To be clear, like we've spent the last 15 minutes talking about nothing that is anything to do with F1.
Harry Hill's TV Burp for those of you in the UK.
We've just been watching Harry Hill's TV Burp.
Exclusively.
Yeah, quite rightly too.
In fact, we might not talk about F1 at all today. We might just...
I would do a podcast.
YouTube, Harry, go on.
Yeah, I would do a podcast talking about Harry Hill's TV Burp. Maybe that could be a side quest for us.
You know those Twitter threads that you were like, F1 drivers as Harry Hill's TV Burp moments? A very important thread.
That would have like an audience of 3.
Yes. Yeah, good.
But you're right with what you say, Sam. There has been a lot of F1 news recently. Some of it we got to midweek. Some of it we'll tackle today. We aren't even going to be able to get through all of it. There's been that much. But we are going to talk about the rumours that Qatar might be interested in investing in Audi. The battle for 6th place in the Constructors Championship, how that might go with just 3 Grand Prix left in the season. Monaco contract extension until 2031. Harry is happy. Sam is shaking his head.
Come on!
Later. But we are going to start with news at Aston Martin, which is that Dan Fallows is stepping down as Aston Martin's technical director after a 2.5-year stint in the role. His departure follows Aston Martin's recent appointment of Adrian Newey, of course, who will join from Red Bull next year. Fallows played a key role in the AMR 23 chassis, which helped the team secure 8 podiums last season and briefly hold second in the Constructors' Championship before finishing 5th. However, performance has dipped as the season has progressed, with unsuccessful upgrades continuing into this year. Aston Martin Group CEO Andy Cowell thanked Fallows for leading the AMR 23 success, and Fallows described his time as a joy and a privilege and expressed his confidence in the team's future success. Now, as we know, he's going to stay within the Aston Martin company as a whole, but it's the role itself that he's moving on from. Sam, any surprise at this? What was your reaction to the news?
No, I'm not surprised. Fallows has done a really good job at keeping the ship consistent, keeping them steady. They've never dropped below what has been considered a strong midfield position. Of course, I think they surprised us when they really started to challenge for regular podiums and what could have been almost a win at that Monaco Grand Prix where they made that wrong decision under the pits and realistically could have won that Grand Prix if it hadn't been for that strategic blunder. I think my issue with Aston Martin, I've said it quite a few times on the show, is their inability to innovate beyond what they already know from the teams in front of them. They're really, really good at taking designs from your likes of Red Bull, Ferrari, etc., and adapting them to fit their car. But what they are not brilliant at doing is then coming up with something else that someone else hasn't done, which elevates them beyond the Red Bulls, the McLarens, the Ferraris. They can't seem to fully come up with an original concept that separates them from the pack. And you've seen that both years over the last 2. You're seeing it with last year where they got the US Grand Prix at Qatar. Both had to do a change of chassis, both removed upgrades, what they were doing. And again, this year where the upgrades just seemed to falter. One of them was running a different spec entirely. The car seems to have no consistency in where it's being developed. And as much as I think Fallows has done a great job with this transition from the racing point days into Aston Martin, and he's clearly helped them spur them forward. With all the investment that's going on with, of course, Adrian Newey coming in, with all the money pouring in, and also committing to the future, you really do need someone at the helm of this department that understands how to read between the lines and the rules and give them a bit of a leg up, a unique advantage in that technical director space. And I just think that He's done a brilliant job, but it is time to step aside and let someone else come in now who can really propel them forward and not just be a follower, but rather a leader in the space.
What do you think, Harry? Any surprise from you when you heard this news, and what's your overall reaction?
I don't think too surprised, given the signing of one Mr. Newey to that team. It does feel like, and I know he's not working for them yet, but I imagine he might have had a conversation with Aston Martin on that front and might crack. It's like, well done, Dan, because they worked together at Red Bull. Obviously, Dan Fallows was a student of Adrian Newey, and it feels like that's what they're sort of going back to those roles now. The student, you've done a great job thus far, but the Masters coming in now, so it's time for you to step aside slightly. But I don't think it's I don't think this is a bad thing. It just feels like it's like they're bolstering. Obviously, they are bolstering because they're gaining Adrian Newey, but they're bolstering that side of the team in that they'll have Adrian Newey and Dan Fallows. And I know it's not confirmed what he'll be doing, but I imagine he'll still be working closely with him. So, yeah, I'm not too surprised. Like you said, Sam, I think he's done a good job, and I don't think this is like an indictment on how this year has gone. I don't think it's last year was good, but this year's not been great. You must now step down. I don't think it's that. I think it's more just they're getting ready for the arrival of Adrian Newey, and this makes sense because you can't have both of them trying to do the same job. So yeah, I'm not massively surprising. I kind of thought there might be a restructure at some point. I thought maybe it doesn't matter when they announce it, does it? A bit, end of the year style. I thought it might be then, but they're just getting their ducks in a row, I think, for when does he join? March 2025.
We know that Adrian Newey's more recent times at Red Bull have involved him being something of an offshoot, a consultant within the team. Does this change, Harry, imply that maybe Adrian Newey is looking to become more of that leader of a team rather than just that expert pair of eyes that weighs in?
I think so, and I think that's probably what Aston Martin need and have signed him for, right? And we said this when he signed the sort of title, and he's going to be a shareholder and etc. He's whereas, as you say, at Red Bull he was becoming less and less involved in terms of the main team, and he was a consultant. He is fully in here. He is on board, and it does feel like it's going to be a pet project for him to lead this team and build up that design team. So I think this is going to be different, and I think this is just, like I said, I think this is the first step of that, that process for him.
Yeah, I can't say I'm overly surprised at this one. The only thing I'm a little bit surprised at is that it's taken this long. I didn't think it was going to take until now for this change to happen, and I do think there is an element of Lawrence Stroll's patience wearing thin, because it has been a difficult sort of 18 months or so now, maybe sort of 12 to 18 months. Yes, they were looking pretty good at the beginning of 2023, but it has been tough since then. You do still need to show progress, even if Aston Martin's goal is not 2024 and 2025, and it's instead 2026 and beyond. As we've spoken about with the likes of Audi, like, we're pretty clear that they can't just expect to come in 2026. It's a brand new era. Everything from the previous era doesn't count whatsoever. There does still need to be progress from one era to the next. So I can't say I'm overly surprised about this one. I do think how Adrian Newey fits into this part of it is important. And I think in all likelihood, it's a similar situation to Ferrari. You'll remember when Binotto was head of Ferrari and how he was promoted. Ideal world, I think Ferrari, when they realised it wasn't going very well, would have wanted to go, let's bring in someone else and Binotto can go back to doing his old role that he's really good at. But it's just not doable, which is why I think maybe it was tough to manoeuvre this one to say, we'd maybe still like you in this team, but Adrian Newey's quite good. We'd like him to be a director. So, yeah, I can imagine this was a bit of an awkward one. He does, as I say, deserve credit for the way in which they started 2023, but I think in a way the success he had at the beginning of the last season might have hurt him and his chances going into this year. It's been tough. Like 154 points they scored in the first 8 races of last year. They've scored 212 in the 35 races since then. That's an average of 19.25 points per race to an average of 6. Like it's a fair downturn on what they were achieving. And the biggest concern isn't like where they'll finish, because in all likelihood, they'll finish exactly where they finished last year, which is 5th. But the way in which they've done it has been entirely different. They are going to be, they're 300 points behind Mercedes at the moment, who are 4th, and they're over 500 behind McLaren, who are 1st. So it's a bit deceiving to say that they are top half of the championship and they are in 5th place, which is staying exactly where they were last year, because the gap between 5th and 4th is just so massive. Sam, what were your thoughts on the Adrian Newey side of it?
It makes sense to bring Adrian Newey in full force. You wouldn't spend this much money, commit this much manpower, this much time to Adrian Newey coming in, the power of Newey coming in, if you weren't going to give him essentially total freedom to run free and kind of really spread his wings a little bit and use the full immense power of that enormous brain that he has in his head. He's a very smart man, as we all know, much smarter than I am, trying to give commentary on how good he is.
Oh, it's close.
That's the guy,
50,
maybe the nicest thing you've ever said, I reckon, possibly. No, it makes total sense. Why would you commit so much time and resource to someone like Adrian Newey if you weren't going to allow him to have absolutely everything he wants to get the job done? He'll have presented a plan, I imagine, to Lawrence Stroll. I've sat down a number of times and said, I think I can do X, Y, and Z with the regulations. I've looked at it. I think this is how we move forward. I think this is what we do moving forward. But I need to have this team. I need to have this setup. I need to have this amount of money. And I can't just be coming in a day or two a week. It needs to be my team and we do it how I want to do it. And I imagine that Lawrence is very much committed to going, you're the best in the biz. I'm going to put all my weight behind you. And as we said, Dan Fallows has not done a bad job. It's not been bad, but it's also not been exemplary. It's not been groundbreaking. And you look at where McLaren were a couple of years ago and where Aston Martin were a couple of years ago. Merton, lol. And
Aston
Martin. And they actually weren't too dissimilar in where they were. McLaren were sat behind Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes. And now McLaren, 2 years later, are first in the Constructors' Championship. Now, the excuses run thin pretty quick when you look at where they were 2 years ago as two independent constructors. They were both powered by Mercedes engines. They both had older industrial areas to develop their car parts, and they both since built very new areas to test and develop their car parts. One has excelled and has got a fantastic driver lineup where both drivers are firing all cylinders and seem to be recreating their internal pyramid in a very healthy and forward-moving direction that has seen them rise to the top. The other has one driver who is aging but still very strong. The other driver is not doing a brilliant job, and yet they haven't really moved forward after what looked like a burst of great form. So I think they need to throw everything behind Adrian Newey. I'm not shocked that they are throwing everything behind Adrian Newey. I'm sure Adrian Newey will recognise the strengths of Fallows and go, I know what you could do. You did a great job at Red Bull. There is a place for you here. And that's probably why they haven't announced that he is leaving the team, but rather being reintegrated at a different point as part of the Aston Martin development team.
I tend to think that the Austin upgrade that didn't work was the nail in the
final
coffin
straw.
for him.
Yeah.
Because it's not the first set of upgrades that just haven't worked for the team. And I know we talk about 2023 and the way in which they started strong and then sort of fell away towards the end of the year. It's the same things happened this year. Like, they scored at every single one of the first 7 races of the season. We're 21 races into the year, so we can split them perfectly 7-7-7. First 7 races scored at every single Grand Prix. The next 7, 4 out of 7. And then the last 7 has been 3 out of 7. So it has been similar to 2023, where other teams have just been able to outdevelop them. And Austin in the last couple of races with those Austin upgrades have been horrible. They haven't scored any points in the last 3 races. You have to go back to the beginning. The first 3 races are 2022 for the last time that they went 3 consecutive Grand Prix without scoring. And when you're running, as you mentioned earlier, Sam, you're running a China spec, and you can't really tell the difference between that and what is their current spec. That's not a great look. So I'm not overly surprised that those Austin upgrades that just haven't worked seem to have maybe been... They gave him a couple of races to work and they just haven't. Harry, do you think... obviously, Dan Fallows is gone from his role, but Mike Crack is still team principal of the team. Do you anticipate any changes there? Are you surprised that there hasn't been a move?
I don't think so. I think it would be harsh to get rid of Mike Crack now, and I'm not sure it makes a total amount of sense to do that anyway, because he for Aston Martin, their goal is 2026. I know they've had a bit of success last year. This year's not been great, but in a similar vein to a lot of teams, or a few of the teams on the grid, 26 is where their big project is at, and beyond that. So it would make sense to let him see in that era. If we get to 2026 and it's garbage, then I think, fair enough. Questions need to be asked about whether he's the right man for the job. But he was only brought in at the beginning of 2022. No time for him to affect 2022. Basically, he's just there. 23's been good. 24's not been so good. So I think I think he deserves more time, and they've got to like Williams. You could say, does James Vowles need to be changed at Williams? But you'd say no, because it's the big project they're on, and it's the same for Aston Martin. So it would be unwise to do that. I think he's done a good job so far. It's been up and down, but again, you'd say the same for like McLaren. I know they have Andrea Stella now, but they were consistent in terms of when Zach Brown came in, they were consistent with who their team principal has been for a while, with Andrea Seidel as well, until he left. I think you've got to keep that consistency for some time before you start asking those sorts of questions. So I think he's the right man for now.
Do you agree with that, Sam? I know this is something we actually touched on a Patreon episode a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I do agree with what Harry said there. Mike Crack's quite an anonymous team leader externally. And I mean that in the sense of he's not like a Toto Wolff or a Christian Horner or someone like what a Günther Steiner was. You don't really see him appearing as much in the public realm.
To add to that point, Andy Cowell is the one who made the comment about this, not Mike Crack. So
yeah, he seems very similar to Seidel and Zach Brown. Zach Brown likes to do a lot of the public speaking. Seidel will talk to press occasionally, but Zach Brown is very much the spokesperson. And it seems like a similar relationship is here with Mike Crack. Now, I think that means that... Oh, come on, mate.
I'm sorry. I've tried so hard. I'm sorry. Sorry, Mike.
Oh, okay, anyway. Let's all get it out.
Well,
good?
Yeah.
Good. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Good.
So that was some determination.
Oh, no. Right. It's quite anonymous. And I don't mean that as a negative thing. It just means that if he knows that what's gone wrong isn't down to his own doing, as Harry mentioned, he only came in at the start of 22. And it does take time to action change into, altering the direction of a Formula One team is not a simple thing. You don't get to come in on day one and you go, do this, do this, do this. And by race 2, we're going to be flying. It's not that quick. And you saw it with how Fred Vasseur has slowly altered Ferrari. You definitely say that they've taken steps forward in the grand scheme of things since he's joined Ferrari, but that took time. And I do think Mike Crack has shown that progress has been made, maybe not as much as what Lawrence would like, but progress has been made. And there are some tricky moments going on. The alteration of engine supplier, Lance hasn't exactly been firing all cylinders. They've had some internal changes that have needed to be made. As I mentioned already, they've had the wind tunnel and kind of the factory changes have finally come to fruition. So I think Mike Crack can turn around and say, there's a lot been going on. I've had kind of a hand tied behind my back the entire time I've been here, and we still have made good progress. Give me until the 2026 regulations have fully kicked in, and my team is operating how I want it to operate, and then judge me. I think it's fair to say that. I don't think that's unfair for him to come out and back himself on those regulations and that changes that are going to take place in 26. So I don't think he's under pressure, but I'm sure Lawrence has got a kind of a crossing a date, maybe at the end of the 2026 season that goes, Mike, we are in exactly the same position as where we were 2 years ago, and you've had all of this money and investment and development now. I expect us, if we're 5th, but only 10 points away from, the championship leader, it's that close, you're doing a great job. If we're 5th and we're still 300 points away from Mercedes, it's not ideal. So yeah, I think that's where the judgment's going to come into play.
I tend to lean towards if he wanted to make a change, he'd have made it now. Rather than wait, because if you do want to affect change for 2026, that move has to happen now rather than in 6 months' time or in 12 months' time. There's a reason Audi, for example, decided to get rid of Andreas Seidel not that long ago and announced that Bonotto and Jonathan Wheatley would be joining. It's the reason they did that then and not in a year's time. It was a drastic change, but it was a change made with enough time still in hand for them to really impact what's going to happen when the regulations change. So I'd imagine based on that, he's probably going to be safe until the new era starts, at which point, judge him based on what happens in that year and in 2027. If it doesn't go very well, then, you maybe made a mistake not doing something now. But I think maybe similar, as you say, Harry, similar to James Vowles, he deserves the opportunity to show what he can do. We're going to take our first break on this episode. On the other side, we're talking Monaco.
Yay.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. Formula One will race in Monaco until at least 2031 under a new agreement with the promoters. So starting in 2026, the Monaco Grand Prix will actually move from its traditional late May slot to the first week of June. So next year's race will be the last one to take place in May. The date change allows F1 to potentially pair the Miami and Montreal races back-to-back, reducing the transatlantic travel and lowering carbon emissions. F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali said that the deal will allow us to create an optimized calendar, which reduces pressure on logistics and to decrease the environmental impact of our global championship. Let's start with, we'll touch on the date change in a little bit, but let's just start with the extension itself. I think we should probably start positively.
Imagine if I come out now and say I hate it.
Imagine.
I'm going to go to Harry first on this. Your reaction to the news that F1 will be sticking around for at least another 7 years?
Delighted. I love Monaco, and I know it doesn't produce an exciting race, but as I've said before, I would keep Monaco purely for qualifying because I think it's the greatest qualifying of the year. There's a lot of changes happening to the calendar. There's obviously more and more street circuits, but I just think that it's one of the few tracks left that's quite unique. Even a lot of classic tracks are getting modernized in a way. I reference Monza, for example, Sam's favorite corner, Ascari. They butchered it with its curbs this year.
Look how they massacred my boy.
Exactly. And I just think that's going to be the way it goes. We may even lose such classic tracks. So I know it doesn't create great entertainment. And I think there are things F1 can do. I think the problem, as I said before, is the formula, not the track. Look at what Formula E can do there. Smaller cars plus. But I just, as a unique challenge, I love qualifying day at Monaco GP. If it's a wet race, it can be a belter, and I know it's not to everyone's taste, Sam. But
he might surprise you. Imagine the opportunity to respond to it.
Yeah. But I just think it's one of those that has to be part of the Formula One calendar. So yeah, I'm pleased. I'm very pleased it's staying. It would have been F1 would have been an odd place without the Monaco GP. I just think it's one of those you have to have.
One of those you just have to have. Right, Sam?
I got to go make another drink a second, so bye-bye now.
Yeah, odd. Yeah, a world without misery would be odd. You're right. It would be
Misery.
I am miserable.
So miserable watching these cars go around a track.
Miserable Monaco.
Look, qualifying at Monaco is a spectacle. And I will fully agree with Harry. It really is a joy to behold watching a car on a hot lap go around the Monaco racetrack. And it is special. I'm not going to be one of those people that can't see that there are some positives. And actually, I don't blame the racetrack either. The racetrack is the racetrack. You're racing around one of the smallest places on the planet when it comes to how many people live in the area that we are, how much land they've got, and what they're making the track out of. And these cars are Goliaths in comparison to what they used to be. They're almost double the size of the cars 20 years ago. It is the formula that is the problem, not the racetrack. And I do stand by that, and I'm okay with it. But that doesn't mean that the race itself isn't boring. We have had maybe 2 good Grand Prix in the last 15 or so years. 9 out of 10 times. It is the most boring Grand Prix of the year. No one crashes anymore. We have no overtaking opportunities. You've had drivers running around with engines failing, but because no one could get past, there's no jeopardy to it. It was great that Leclerc won, and we got some brilliant commentary and some not so brilliant commentary that really lifted or dampened the emotions depending on what formula and what version you watched. But that's happened now. That's come and gone. We've had that brilliant moment. So I'm struggling to get behind this renewal. And until Formula One comes up with a different weekend concept that adds some spiciness to Monaco that isn't just the Saturday is great, the Sunday is rubbish, I'm never going to be excited. I'm never going to be overjoyed. I would love to go to the Monaco Grand Prix. If they want to call it up and take me out there, maybe you could convince me otherwise.
I am miserable here at the Monaco
Sat
Grand
there,
Prix.
furious, on a yacht.
Everyone cheering. I'm going to go on the roller coaster that doesn't scream. Me the whole time. Arms
You will
crossed.
suck.
I hate Monaco.
I'm having a terrible, terrible time.
Someone get the meme. I hate Monaco with me on the board. But Photoshop me into the grandstand. Yeah, no, it's a wonderful place. The qualifying spectacular. The race is dreadful. And until Formula One changes something about that Sunday, I'm not going to be positive about it because it needs to change. Just because it's historic doesn't mean it's good.
I know we're going to get onto the date change in a minute, but I would be very open to Formula One making this a more unique weekend in terms of the structure of it, what we do for a race day, etc. Make it more like an Indy 500 or a Le Mans, which I know we'll touch on because it's part of the Triple Crown. But I would be very open to, something changes the way the race is run, or mandatory pit stops. I don't know what it is. I did see someone suggest make it single lap qualifying, and I was like, no, that's the good bit. Leave qualifying alone.
Make it all lap qualifying.
That's the weekend we're done. Just like job done here. Saturday. Bye bye.
Can all go home now?
I mean, I'll get onto it in a minute, but that's basically what I want to do, to be honest. But
sorry, Ben. That's your point.
I did just want to ask you, Sam, on one thing. You mentioned Charles Leclerc's win here this year, which was an epic moment for him personally and for the sport. And I feel like with this extension, there are people on both sides of the argument. In years to come, people will remember Leclerc's win more than they will remember the fact that there were no overtakes and it was an awful race.
Yep.
If Leclerc doesn't win this year, and it's let's just say Piastri takes that win, Leclerc's back in fourth, something like that, is there more pressure on F1 not to do this? Like, would there have been more opposition to a contract extension?
Oh, 100%. How many times have we seen certain racetracks or certain areas either be given a Grand Prix or have extensions given to them because they've got a famous, successful driver as part of it? If Charles Leclerc doesn't exist, click your fingers, wrong alternate universe, the Leclerc family doesn't exist, we do not have a driver from Monaco on the track. I imagine if we had another dull Grand Prix with no overtakes, and maybe it's Piastri, maybe it's Norris, whatever, wins that Grand Prix, by 15 seconds, not a single overtake, people will go, good, another year, nothing different has happened. It was an amazing moment. It was historic. It was amazing to see Leclerc win his home Grand Prix. It was wonderful. Really was wonderful. I won't take that away from him. But how many times have we seen Valencia appear because Fernando Alonso was doing a fantastic job? Germany having 2 Grand Prix because Michael Schumacher was there. And then obviously Vettel turning up. How many times have we seen that, in the 90s, we had Donington as the European GP because there were a lot of British drivers, a lot of British interest. It depends a lot on the drivers and interest that you've got. I just think that Leclerc is like spreading a stained glass window over all of Monaco on a Sunday and going, doesn't it look pretty? And it does look pretty, but it's a really boring stained glass window when you look at it properly, that's for sure.
Doubling down on the misery here.
I'm miserable.
I mean, I've given my thoughts on what I'd do with the Monaco Grand Prix before. I would do a really unique weekend where I would just like a time trial Saturday, like extend qualifying on steroids and give points for it as you would a race, similar to the Indy 500 qualifying, how points are given out for that. I would give points out for qualifying or this time trial thing that I'd have on the Saturday. And then I would have on the Sunday a charity race in non-F1 cars where all the F1 teams taking part. I don't know what car exactly it would be, but something that's far more appropriate for Monaco. That's how I would do the weekend. And I would also lean into heritage. Like everyone brings their special livery for the year that focuses on heritage that weekend. And you can't do any more for the rest of the year because otherwise it's not very special. McLaren.
Changing one panel of the car each race.
Anyway, putting that to one side, why that's probably unreasonable. A more reasonable take would be, could we have not just seen how 2026 would have gone? with the new cars, because if we turn up in 2026, 2027, let's give it 2 years of the new regulations, and Monaco's much better because of the new cars, great. Then extend it to 2031. But if it's still bad, then we can actually do something about it and not extend it. Like this generation of car, even though it wasn't really supposed to be lighter, was supposed to be better in terms of following and dirty air being less of a factor. It hasn't really changed anything in terms of Monaco, right? There's a chance we get to 2026 and the new regulations don't really change anything again for this racetrack. In which case, there's too much interest on the calendar for us to keep a Grand Prix solely because it's a good qualifying event.
Never.
Alternatively, never. That's a great point.
This is what it's like living with Harry again. Once he gets something in his mind, there's no going back.
Yeah, I understand the positive points of Monaco. That's why I would stay there, just under slightly different circumstances to what we have now.
What car would you make them do the charity race in?
Yeah, I want to know this.
Oh,
I was
sorry, I got someone on the phone. Is that a British touring car?
Yeah. Come on, let's go.
I would want them in 2004 Mini Coopers.
I was going to suggest, what are the cars? They're very British, but the three-wheeled cars.
Robin Reliant.
Yeah, get him in Robin Reliance.
Jeremy Clarkson sliding on his side.
It'd be so good. Something like that, and not Robin Reliant.
Yeah. But they could have they could have an F2 car. Get them all in F1 Academy cars. They've all technically got a sponsor down there. Stick them all in those for a weekend.
Yeah, something cool.
Harry, your thoughts on the change in dates? Obviously, this has been forever been in May and has been linked with the Indy 500 same day. Doesn't appear as if that's going to be the case anymore with this change into June.
Well, firstly, delighted because it means we can review the Monaco GP and not have to try and rush through because we want to watch the Indy 500.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can listen to the anthem as well.
Exactly, the best bit of the Indy 500. This makes total sense. It's been a shame for a while that it's clashed, and a bit of me did like it was like Super Sunday for that. But now you can have 3 weeks of the Triple Crown because you could have Monaco, Indy 500 next week. Indy 500, then Monaco, then Le Mans, and it would open up opportunities for any driver to do all three in one go, which would be, mad. But it'd be fun to watch. Fernando Alonso. He's already considering it, isn't he? But yeah, it opens up opportunities for that, which we've not been able to do before, and just for drivers to even just do the Indy 500, which I'd love to see. So, from a viewing perspective, fan perspective, this is great. I like the idea of 3 consecutive weekends of the Triple Crown. That should be sold like that. I hope someone, marketing man Zach Brown, get on that. And yeah, from a driver perspective and stuff like that, it opens up the doors for multiple category drivers to do multiple categories when they haven't been able to before. So good, well done. And also the Miami Montreal back to back, correct, well done, well done, Stefano. I'm proud of you. It would make sense. So that's another tick. So yeah, all round good.
I think that's the reason why they've actually done it, is the opportunity to do Miami and Montreal back to back. It's just that we also get this other benefit of the Indy 500 not being on the same day, which is great. I know that them changing the date from the last weekend in May has been a point of contention in negotiations for a while. And I can imagine the negotiations this time around went something like, we'd like a really long contract extension. No. What about if we move to June? Okay. Sign. I think that's how it went.
Gosh, were you in the room?
Yeah, I was actually. Transcribing everything.
You're so good at negotiation.
But yeah, if we get a long-term contract extension, but we do at least get the benefit of it not being on the same day as the Indy 500, that is good by me. Sam, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't want to come across as patronising, but I do want to bend over and pat F1 on the head and go, "Oh, good job, well done, F1. You've thought about this really obvious issue that's been plaguing the Formula One calendar for years now, and you've rectified it with one very simple change. And we get to watch Indy 500 properly without panicking. So, yeah, all for it. Well done. This is the most positive part of this extension. Brilliant job."
Good stuff. Right, we're going to take our second break on this episode. On the other side, we're talking about the battle for 6th in the Constructors Championship.
Thrilling.
That is all we ever want to talk about.
Damn right. Now, it's perhaps not overly surprising that in our midweek episode, we gave a lot of time and high prominence in terms of the schedule to the battle for first in the Constructors Championship. It's maybe less of a surprise that on a non-race Sunday as the third topic, we're talking about the battle for 6th place. But all of these positions matter, and it is pretty close. A lot of chat about Alpine and their result at Brazil and financially what that could mean for the team, moving up three places in the Constructors' Championship. They are now in the driving seat. They are now in 6th place on 49 points, but Haas are just 3 points behind on 46. RB are just 5 points behind on 44. So it looks like it's going to be pretty close between 6th, 7th and 8th, Sam. Do you think Alpine can keep it?
It's definitely possible, but I do feel like even with these late upgrades that Alpine have brought to the floor, it feels very much like the odds are stacked against them. And you might be thinking, well, why? Well, Brazil was a fluke. Let's be real. I'm not sure we're all realistically thinking that Ocon and Gasly on pure pace alone.
Bloody dare you.
Absolute monsters that they both are. What a great team that's going to be for 2025 when they're both lined up in that car. Oh, no, never mind. Sorry, they did fire Ocon. Keep forgetting. Stupid decision. No, mate. It shocks you every time, doesn't it? Can't believe it.
Oh, dear.
I think the odds are stacked against them. Now, if you look at previous results, 4 races ago, Azerbaijan, Alpine finished 12th and 15th, no points. RB finished 13th at DNF, no points. Haas, 10th and 11th, so 1 point. Singapore, Alpine 13th and 17th, no points. RB, 12th and 18th, no points. Haas, 9th and a DNF, 2 points. USA, 12th and 18th for Alpine. RB, 9th and 14th for RB, so that's 2 points there. Haas picked up 4 points with 8th and 11th. And then we go to Mexico, the last race that wasn't a total fluke. Alpine only pick up 1 point, usually getting a 10th place. RB don't get any points again, but Haas pick up 8 points with a 7th and a 9th. And the issue there for Alpine is that Haas only are seemingly getting better. They're really growing into their upgrades and how their car is running. And Magnussen is really starting to deliver on results these days. He's right up there with Hülkenberg. Now, RB are probably the team that maybe can get ahead of. Lawson still finding his feet. Tsunoda, his form seemingly quite hit and miss. And the development of that car being very temperamental, they are unlikely to really be a regular challenger in the points. But they've still been there or thereabouts. The last time that Alpine scored points before they got in the Mexico-Brazil doubleheader, I think was all the way back in something like Belgium, perhaps? Oh, no, sorry, it was the Dutch Grand Prix where Gasly picked up a 10th place. So it's not been a regular fiesta for Alpine when it comes to scoring points. And Haas have picked up points in almost every Grand Prix since the summer break. I just can't see the one-off luck of Alpine becoming a regular thing where they are regularly scoring 6th, 7th, 8th over what Haas has been able to do every single Grand Prix where they've always had at least one car in the points, let alone another one there or thereabouts. It just feels an uphill battle in the last 3 Grand Prix for Alpine. So it's definitely possible that they could be in that fight. And I do think there's a chance they could beat RB. Haas for them are really the key issue here. They've been so consistent and they've really gone on leaps and bounds with the development of that car. So it's Haas that they're going to have to struggle against.
What do you think, Harry?
Yeah, I agree with Sam on this. I think the problem that Alpine have, yes, the result was great for them. It's obviously jumped them into 5th. 6th, not 5th.
Aston Martin, incredibly confused.
Yeah.
Hey, another Brazil coming up, and Aston Martin have to look over their shoulder.
Oh dear. But yeah, it's the consistency, they're not always consistent, but they are more consistent, Haas, than Alpine have been this year, let's say. And I think with 3 races to go, you'd bet that Haas can score a couple more points where you think Alpine may not be able to, unless there is another Brazil situation, which, we've got Las Vegas coming up. Something could happen there in terms of it's a bit more of an unknown. But yeah, I think it's going to be a tough one for Alpine to hold on to. It's a position I don't think they ever thought they were going to be in this year. They're probably surprised. Do you think Flavio's like, I don't want to be this successful. I need a reason to sell them. This is worse. I need them to lose.
They're actually really excited about the amount of wind tunnel time that they're going to get, and now they're not going to get that anymore.
Yeah.
Flavio loves a wind tunnel.
Well, That's what I've heard. Whatever that means. But yeah,
breezy Tory, they call it.
A breezy Tory.
So bad, yeah, a bit breezy, isn't it?
Windy
I'm
Conservative.
glad it's a Sunday we get a traditional sign off for Harry and not a creative one.
Oh, good.
I'd have been there.
I'll save it for Wednesday. But yeah, and so yeah, Haas, I think their consistency is what Alpine are going to be worried about. RB, they are inconsistent and almost as inconsistent as Alpine. But you know, again, it only takes one good result from Tsunoda or Lawson. But yeah, the threat for Alpine is definitely Haas. I'd if I was to make a choice now, I'd say Haas will end up in sixth by the end of the year. So sorry, Haas. That means you probably won't now because I've said that.
Can't wait to come back to this. I broadly agree with both of you, but I am going to give Alpine a bit more credit than you both are, because I think there is at least a chance they'll keep it. And I know Brazil, the race itself was fluky, including qualifying. Obviously, it was a great effort from Ocon to get on the second row of the grid, but it was a jumbled up grid based on the conditions. But the sprint race wasn't fluky, and Gasly was a legitimate 7th place there. And Pierre Gasly has been qualifying inside the top 10 on numerous occasions since we've come back from this autumn break, shall we call it? Ever since Austin, he has been very good. I know he didn't score any points at Austin, as you pointed out, Sam, but he did qualify in the top 10, and we saw those that started on the medium tyre in that Grand Prix, like Gasly. Magnussen was another one. They didn't benefit from that strategy whatsoever. The likes of Colapinto and Lawson, who started on the hard tyre, they were on the right strategy and were able to get by them. I think if that goes a different way, Gasly scores points. Mexico, as you say, Haas were better, but Gasly was still pretty good there as well. And as mentioned, Gasly was 7th place in the sprint. I know Hamilton didn't make the progress that he'd have wanted to in that sprint, and Perez kind of got back but didn't get by Gasly. But even so, I think he did a very good job to be in the points in that one. So I think based on all that, they are favoured to beat RB. As you say, Sam, hit and miss in terms of Tsunoda's form. Lawson, you could probably say the same, even if he is just getting into the groove of things. But you do have to give credit to what Haas have been able to do recently, because you're right, they have been unbelievably consistent. And that partnership of Hülkenberg and Magnussen does make me think that even if Alpine can do it, Haas are still the favourites to do it, even with that 5-point gap to make up. I want to shout out Haas here, because they have scored, before Brazil, they scored in 5 consecutive Grand Prix. That is the first time they have done that since the middle of 2018. 5 consecutive races, they scored points. And by the way, that's the only other time they've ever done it in their team's history. So for the second time ever, they've gone 5 races scoring points. And who knows, with a slightly more standard Brazilian Grand Prix, maybe they'd have got to 6. Magnussen's shown some better form as of late. Hülkenberg, I would argue, has been the class of the midfield for the season as a whole. So depending on whether you include Aston Martin, I guess, in that midfield. But yeah, lineup's good. Car's looking good, consistent. I'd put Haas as the favourites. I'd pick Alpine to beat RB, though. Should we move on to some rumours from Audi and Qatar about investment there? Because Audi is apparently on the verge of selling a shareholding in its Sauber team to Qatar, with an announcement potentially coming ahead of, unsurprisingly, the Qatar Grand Prix, which is coming up. What are your thoughts on this one, Sam?
I think initially I looked at it and I was a bit worried. I kind of viewed it initially as skepticism that Audi weren't committed to the Formula One movement, and actually some things had changed after viewing Sauber's form, and they kind of thought, oh, this might be a little bit harder than we think. We're going to kind of maybe scapegoat things a little early and try and spread a bit of the responsibility. But after digging into it, it looks as though the global situation in terms of finances and the kind of economic crisis that a lot of part of the world has gone through has hit the Audi group and VW ownership quite hard. They've come out and expressed that they may have to get rid of a lot of jobs. And it looks like Audi ownership have kind of said, we really care about the Formula One journey, and we think it's very important to our overall mission to put themselves up there alongside the likes of Mercedes, but it is not worth sacrificing job roles, parts of the main car business and the manufacturing side of things just to try and do well in the sport of Formula One, which actually seems very logical to me, makes a lot of sense. Equally, having someone like Qatar come in and buy a part of the team, a minority stake, so Audi will still control the whole, the majority part of the company. They make the key decisions. Isn't unusual. If you look at Mercedes as a direct comparison, Mercedes Group actually only own a third of the overall model of their Formula One team. Toto Wolff owns a third, and the Ineos Group owns a third. The same with McLaren. No longer have total ownership. The Saudi Group are the key owners of that group now as well. So this ownership model is very normal, very spread, and actually is very logical in terms of risk management. Audi do want to be here, but when you've got owners such as VW who are going through, as I mentioned, the monetary crisis, Porsche are obviously a key part of this, and the Qatari group already do own a part of the VW group for the road side of things. It makes sense. It's a logical journey for them to go on. It makes sense to be a part of both the manufacturing and the sporting side of things. And the Qatari group already have a very key stake in Formula One, being the airline sponsor of Formula One as well. They already have the Grand Prix, and now it makes sense that they're part of a race team. So on the surface, yeah, I was a little bit, doesn't feel great, not even done a race yet. But when you dig a little deeper, this feels logical. I just hope that it doesn't become a situation where we essentially have a brand. Remember how Alfa Romeo were kind of running the brand on top of Sauber? I don't want this to be the case. I don't want Audi to, again, essentially just be a label on a car that is owned entirely by someone else, and it could go at any moment. Because I do think the authenticity and the historic presence of a real manufacturer is very important to Formula One. So if it stays as it is and they just need it to mitigate that financial risk, I'm all for it.
What were your thoughts on this one, Harry?
Yeah, I'm not too worried about this in terms of Audi's commitment to F1. I think this is fairly sensible, as you mentioned, Sam. They're committed to F1, but they don't want to lose. They don't want it to adversely affect the road car business, and that's a sensible decision. And it's not unusual to have that sort of investment from elsewhere. Anyway, Aston Martin, for example, a lot of Saudi backing. Similar thing, isn't it? It's for the finances, and it makes sense. So yeah, I'm not doubting Audi's commitment, and I think actually this almost reaffirms their commitment in terms of they're committed to doing this properly. They don't want to do it they don't want to hass it in that sense in terms of thank you. They don't want to just put half a budget forward for it and just try and do it on the cheap. They want to do this properly. So I think that's the way I read it. I don't think it means they're just not committed, and Qatar may be a sponsor, etc., on the car, etc. But yeah, I think it's a positive thing, and also good they're doing. Well, I know this isn't confirmed, but if they are going to do this, they're doing it now and not getting to F1 and going, oh crap, this is more expensive than we thought it was.
Crap.
Oh crap! Oh yeah. Hang on. I should have thought that. Do you think the joke's gone now?
No. It's actually better now than it was a minute ago.
Oh crap! Said Audi.
So smooth.
Thank you. What's the secret to comedy? Timing. But yeah, better. Thank you, better. Such a terrible joke.
It's so bad.
But yeah, I think it's better that I think if this is the case, they're thinking about this now and not when they arrive in 2026 properly. So yeah, I don't think this is a negative thing at all.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add on top of both of your points, really. As you rightly point out, Volkswagen are having a difficult time at the moment. Tens of thousands of jobs potentially on the line, plant closures, and it becomes difficult to justify what is essentially a massive marketing expense in Formula One when you've also got that going on within the same company. I know F1 can and does generate a direct profit, but most of these bigger teams like Mercedes and Ferrari, it's more about indirect profit, isn't it? From the exposure that it gets you. So I can understand wanting to mitigate that risk even a little bit. As you say, Sam, Qatar is very logical based on their current investment in the overall, not team, but the overall company. They're the third biggest investors at the moment at 17%, so it's not really a stretch to see them invest in the F1 side of things as well. And then really the only question comes down to what would the stake be? Would it be more of a majority stake? Would it be a minority stake? Would it be somewhere in the middle? And how much of the team would be impacted based on that? Would it be, if it's a minority stake, not a lot's going to change. If it gets a little bit bigger, then maybe we look at the team being slightly, the team name being slightly different than just Audi. But as you said, Harry, I mean, technically it's Aston Martin Aramco, right? And who says that? It really doesn't impact anything, right? So even if Qatar does feature as part of the team name, people are still probably going to call it just Audi. I mean, another case in point, Sauber. Does anyone say steak?
No.
Steak bake.
Or kick.
Well, does anyone say steak or kick when they're not making a joke would be a better question.
No, because that team name is a joke.
The only one who did was Valtteri Bottas on his announcement video. He wasn't staying next year, but he called it like steak kick Sauber. And I was like, that's too many words.
And that video of him leaving definitely wasn't a joke in any way whatsoever.
No.
I actually, when someone doesn't have trousers on, take them even more seriously.
Quote,
well,
clip
that is good.
That guy's doing this podcast without any trousers on every week.
Good Lord.
Can we leave people with that as we go to another break? That doesn't.
Off we go. See you later, folks. Take off your trousers in the break.
Your punishment, Sam, can be a Patreon plug. Go on.
Oh, that's got a punishment. No. Put me on the spot now.
I am miserable.
That's the plug. If you want to hear me write about Monaco even more, or predict the retirement of Formula One.
I was going to say this is gonna get a mention at some point.
Damon Hill, Damon, go away.
Damon, no kneecaps. Bloody hell, son.
Can I have a bold prediction point?
Yeah. No. Ben, do you want it? That's what he got to. You're claiming is it a bold prediction now?
Craig on Twitter very rightfully pointed out that I should try and get one, even if it's a pity point. So I had to make the effort.
Did he say that we have to laugh at you every time you bring it up?
If you do that anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
I'd be willing to give you a pity point for that. I'm not mad.
I'm not. I think it's majority rules, unfortunately. So I'm on two myself.
One versus one.
To be clear, I'm on 0, Harry's on 4, and there's 3 races left. So I don't think it's happening for me this year.
I can still come last. That's my point. Anyway, if you want to hear these kinds of conversations where we do things like beer and breaking, where we've had a couple of beers and we do ridiculous stuff like the one we just recorded the other day, which let me tell you was maybe the most rogue thing we've ever done on a beer and breaking. I won't spoil it, but it was hilariously brilliant. You need to check out Patreon. You need to subscribe to Patreon. And there are loads of perks. Everything's ad-free. 2 extra episodes. You get a historic review episode, which you get to vote on. You get birthday shout-outs. You get beer with breaking and many other great perks as well, like early entry to tickets if we ever do a live show. It also supports us as a channel, as a company, massively. You do not realize how much benefit we get by you supporting on Patreon and not just listening for free. We understand if you can't afford it, if it's not your budget, not everyone is that simply able to just donate that kind of money. But to those of you that do, thank you so very much. We put a lot of work into it and it's massively appreciated. The link's in the description if you do want to check it out.
And remember, we like people that subscribe to Patreon more than normal
Swear
listeners.
to God, Harry.
I have to remember to mute Harry every time.
Why is there a quiet 4 seconds every time Sam does a plug?
Yeah, it's just silence after a Patreon plug. It's just Harry.
I think this is an overall play by Harry to not have to do any of these because we're going to get to doing 5-star review plugs soon and he'll be like, we actually prefer people who give us 5-star reviews. And then he won't be able to do it anymore.
The tactic of doing such a bad job of something that you stop me doing it. So I don't have to do it.
Good for you.
All right, we will take our final break on this episode. One more segment on the other side. We're playing late faking. Welcome back, everyone. It's time for late faking.
This is the late faking game, where one answer is fake and the other ones are right. So help me Christ, I'll make my decision in a second. Sam, you're gonna have to wait, cause Ben made this game so hard, and I'm down by 5.
Oh, just go so hard.
Thank you, as ever, to Hall of Famer Live Laugh Latifi. And on that point, we are getting close to the end of the year. So, folks, just keep in mind that Hall of Fame is coming up fairly soon. Get some nominations in your head. But we'll crack on with late faking. There are 6 questions in front of me. In each question, there are 4 answers, but one of them's a fake. You've got to identify which one is the fake. So we'll start with Sam. What number would you like?
Number 2, please, Ben.
Number 2. Which of these 4 teams has not been powered by Renault?
Oh.
Lotus, BAR, Caterham, Ligier.
BAR.
You are absolutely right. BAR has never been powered by Renault. Lotus was in the 80s and in the 2010s. Caterham in the 2010s as well. And Ligier in the 80s. So BAR is the right answer. Harry, over to you.
Number 4, please.
Number 4. I'm going to give you 4 countries. 3 of them have been represented in F1 by a driver. One of them never has.
Okay.
Hungary, Uruguay, Malaysia, Peru.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, that's a real problem for you, but that's a you problem.
That's like a you problem. Peru.
I don't know. I guess right answer.
Yeah, why not have the right one, please?
Well, I was thinking Peru or Uruguay, but because I know there's been Malaysia and Hungary, but
yeah, you're absolutely right. It is Peru. Malaysia has been represented by
the great, legendary Alex Young.
100%. Speaking of legends, Hungary.
Is that Zon Baumgartner?
It is Sean Baumgartner. Love that.
2 for 2.
And then 4 drivers have raced for Uruguay. I think they were all in the 1950s. So
Wow.
You'll know them well.
Is right. What a great start. We're at 1-1. Back to you, Sam.
6, please, Ben.
Number 6. I'm going to give you 4 drivers. 3 of them had at least 50 races before they achieved their first podium in F1.
Oh.
One of them managed to get a podium before they hit 50 races. So you've got Esteban Ocon, Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon, Jenson Button.
Oh, cool, blimey. I'll go Sainz. Oh, but sorry, hold on, before they hit 50 races. That's the fake one. No, Sainz took over 50 races. I want to say Button did it before 50 races. Oh, God, if I've got that wrong now, I'm going to say the way around. I'm going to hate myself.
If you had said Carlos Sainz, you would have been wrong. So Jenson Button is also wrong. So
Fine. I really put my hands up to celebrate.
you were less wrong with Jenson Button. So Carlos Sainz, it was 101 races before he took his first podium. Button was 68. Ocon was 66. Alex Albon just 30 races before he took his first podium.
That was, yes, I misunderstood the question, which I'm not surprised at.
Ben, you're becoming like Chris Tarrant, building up the tension like that.
I've never had such a compliment in my life.
You'll be saying
playing out billionaire.
Yeah, you'll be. Oh God, you'll be saying. We'll find out the right answer after the break. Next.
Yeah,
I'll get the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire klaxon. I'll get that installed for the end of the show. We're out of time.
Come on, next week.
Harry, back to you. What number would you like?
Number 1.
Number 1. 4 drivers. 3 of them have won the British GP multiple times. One of them hasn't. That's the one you have to name.
Have they won it, or they just not won it multiple times?
Doesn't matter.
You cheeky boy.
David Coulthard, Sebastian Vettel,
times. Right.
Michael Schumacher, Ayrton Senna.
I'm going to go with Senna because I think he just kept breaking down all the time.
Sound reasoning. Correct answer.
Oh,
yeah.
Sound reasoning. Wrong answer.
That was a tricky one as well, because technically Ayrton Senna won multiple Grand Prix in the United Kingdom. As
European.
referenced earlier, the European Grand Prix at Donington was a racy one, but not a British Grand Prix. He did win the British Grand Prix once. It was 1988. Coulthard won it twice in back-to-back years, 1999 and 2000. Vettel twice as well in 2009 and 2018. And Schumacher wasn't one of his most successful tracks, but he did win it 3 times, 98, 02 and 04.
Only just scraped by Coulthard,
Yeah.
which, it's a tough one.
Great rivalry.
Yeah, biggest
They're so
rivalry.
close.
Sam, back to you. What number would you like?
Oh, guess I'll have number 3. There it goes.
Is there an echo in it?
Yeah, I've got a slug behind me.
A pet slug.
I'm going to give you 4 drivers on this one. 3 of them have been teammates to Kimi Raikkonen. One of them never was.
Okay.
Timo Glock, Nick Heidfeld, Luca Badoa, Pedro De La Rosa.
I hate this list.
Miserable Sam's back.
In my head, I'm going, okay, he's definitely had this one, this one, this one, this one. You read off 4 names that never occurred to me, which I'm furious about.
Fuming.
Oh, fuming. Timo Glock.
Yeah, it is.
Right answer, isn't it?
Come on!
I was going to say.
Glock?
It is.
Well worked out, Sam. Nick Heidfeld was teammates with Raikkonen in 2001 back at Sauber. De La Rosa was teammates with Raikkonen in both 05 and 06 at McLaren when Montoya had car-related injuries.
Yeah. Tennis, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was tennis, mate.
Nah, it wasn't tennis. It was definitely and Luca Badoa was 2009 when Badoa filled in for Felipe Massa, which means Glock was the correct answer, and it also means that we're at 2-2 with 1 to play. So, Harry, would you like number 5 or number 5?
Thanks, Ben. I'll have number 5, please.
All honesty, what number were you going for?
I didn't know it.
Every week.
4 drivers, 3 of them finished in the top 10 in the championship in 2021. I'd like you to name the one that didn't finish in the top 10 that year.
Is it the year that Harry forgets?
2020. So.
Of course it is.
Yeah, he's actually got super memory for 21 because it just fills in the gap of 2020.
Double memory.
Yeah. You've got Daniel Ricciardo, Pierre Gasly, Lando Norris, and Sebastian Vettel.
I was sorry, the pennies just dropped for me or something.
I don't know. 2021. I'll go for Sebastian Vettel.
God, I haven't got it. Oh my God, here's the right answer. Yeah, I'll just throw that in there.
Wasn't that the infamous joke of what Netflix's stupid storyline we're being about? The fight for 11th place?
Was that 20?
No, that was a different year.
Oh, okay.
Because it was Ricciardo versus Vettel, and they weren't next to each other in this year.
Right,
because Norris was 6th this season, Ricciardo was 8th, Gasly was 9th, Vettel was 12th. But you are right, it was Vettel versus Ricciardo, and I think it was like the battle for 13th or something ridiculous.
Yes.
That was 22, right? Must have been 2022.
I guess so, yeah.
Anyway.
That upsets me because that means I've lost again. And I didn't think it mattered, but Simon on Instagram apparently has a full log of every single game we played in the last year.
No way.
And I'm now losing 27-10 on these. So 1 in 3 I seem to lose. It's not great odds for me.
Simon, that is dedication.
Go and look at it. It's
Simon
obviously ridiculous.
Where
Simon
is
does
this?
a great job. Had a good chat with him at the British GP preview show about it. But yeah, they were still, 5 out of 6 collectively. That's pretty good. That any good for you?
At least I'm losing close.
Yeah.
I'll take that. The good part is if you look at attendance percentage, I'm way up.
It's even worse that you're losing there.
The games that I play on my own don't count.
Harry wins when he's not here. Harry, now that you know that those attendance figures are tracked, is it just that you didn't know you had to win that one?
Yeah.
I'll turn up every single day.
Yeah. I just wasn't aware.
Oh, right, okay. This is excellent. Simon, thank you so much for sending this.
It's brilliant.
Gonna look
It's
through.
really good.
Game draws 10. About 10 each.
Well, you can't not have the same amount of
No,
draws.
sorry. That's not what I meant.
I forget which one it is, but it might be Show Me the Options, but you might not want to look at the year for Show Me the Options.
Me?
Sam.
Oh, no.
I believe it's been a whitewash in terms of Show Me the Options this year.
Is it really?
How do I see this?
Oh, you scroll up, there's a link.
Oh, sorry. I'm looking at the screenshot. Sorry, Simon.
But there is
Bloody Nora.
something we should discuss off air, maybe.
No, we're going to go through the win-loss records of every game.
Yeah, good fight. I forgot we're still recording. Carry on.
I guess that will probably do it for this episode. F1's just around the corner, though, Sam.
F1's just around the corner because we are going to the land that causes a lot of gambling problems for a lot of people. I couldn't think of a catching game.
Man. Are you the promoter?
They've got me down there, actually.
That's almost as good as your tagline for the Dorchester we were discussing off air.
That's
What's that
lush. Yeah, God, yeah, I can swear we're doing it, so I'm not going to say that. Folks, yeah, Vegas is coming up, which means it's going to be a real hardship for us here in the UK. But we have it easy, so you know we'll take a difficult one this time around. But stay with us. Midweek, we've got our first preview episode for what feels like a while. So get involved, get in the Discord. You might hear yourself in your submissions of who's under pressure. We're going to be going through our bold predictions, our poll 1, 2, 3s, and all the key storylines for the entire weekend. And then over that weekend, we'll of course have a qualifying review, a race review, and power rankings on Patreon as well. You know where to find that. We're also on social media, Late Breaking F1 everywhere. This has been recorded for YouTube, so everyone wave hello at the camera. Even if you stick around for this long, who knows? Brilliant. And then I'll be streaming during the qualifying and the race as well. So come and visit me on Twitch, Late Breaking Podcast. It'd be lovely to have you there as well. But that's it from us. We'll see you midweek. In the meantime, I've been Samuel Sage.
I've been Ben Hocking.
And I've been Harry Eade.
And remember, keep breaking late.